Yeah, we're extremely concerned for Becky. She's been missing now for almost 6 days, away from the home address. She's not been in contact with any of her family and friends, and she's not told anyone where she intended to go. So yeah, we're extremely concerned, and obviously as time goes by, that concern is only increasing.
In February 2015, a 16-year-old girl vanished from her Bristol home. Her friends and family launched a desperate appeal. Her community searched the streets, and police combed the city for clues. But as the hours turned to days, police began to suspect the truth was far closer to home than anyone dared to believe. This is the heartbreaking case of Becky Watts. Becky was just 16. She was shy, caring, and adored by her family. Her early years had been difficult. Following her parents splitting up, she lived with her mum, Tanya. However, she was then placed in local authority care for a short while due to neglect. But soon both her and her brother Dan moved to live with their father, Darren. She loved music, fashion, and being with her friends. But Becky also struggled with insecurity and self-confidence, something her family worked hard to support her through. Her dad, Darren, would later get into a relationship with Angie, who then became Becky's stepmom. Angie had a son called Nathan. When Darren and Angie eventually married in 2013, Nathan was the best man and Becky was the bridesmaid, along with Nathan's long-term girlfriend, Shauna. Despite her shyness, Becky had big dreams for the future. That's why, when she failed to show up one February morning, alarm bells rang almost immediately. On February 19th, it seemed like an ordinary day, but by the next morning, Becky's bedroom was empty. When Becky didn't respond to messages or show up later that day, her family panicked and called the police. At first, detectives treated it as a missing persons case, but the more they looked into it, the more concerned they became. Her social media had not been used and none of her friends had been contacted. Soon the news spread and concerns heightened.
It's 5 days since Becky left her home in the St George area of Bristol with just her laptop and a phone. Police say nobody has heard from her since then.
Friends, family, and the people that are really dearest to her, that I would expect her to have regular contact with, at least one of those people, we've had no contact with her, so we really are very concerned about her well-being.
Police have searched open ground close to Becky's home, but say there have been no significant finds or breakthroughs. 5 days on, detectives and the schoolgirl's family are mystified by her sudden disappearance.
On Wednesday, February the 25th, police conducted a search at Becky's home, as well as woodland and surrounding areas. But still, she wasn't found. Detectives then interviewed everyone close to Becky.
No one saw her go, but just heard the door go, and the assumption that Becky had left the house.
It soon emerged the last people to have seen Becky was her stepbrother Nathan and his girlfriend Shauna. Police asked them to come in to talk.
I think we got there about 11ish. The door was locked, so obviously we used the key from underneath the recycling bin. Got in, heard music upstairs. Assumed Becky had been in then. I went into the kitchen to get a cigarette and went to go outside to have a cigarette. I heard the door slam, front door. So I would have been at the sink. So a distance, a reasonable amount, I'd say.
Okay.
So I heard stomping down the stairs. I assumed, she was in a bit of one of her tantrums.
No, we've been talking for 2 hours, it's quite a long time.
My back's killing.
I know.
Nathan gave an identical account. Although their accounts matched perfectly, there were some red flags. Shauna kept almost laughing throughout her interview, and Nathan was emotionless. Also, their stories were too in sync with each other, almost as if it was rehearsed. Forensics were deployed to Becky's house to conduct a thorough search. Forensics searched Becky's room with painstaking detail. On the door frame and skirting boards, they found tiny spots of blood. They weren't large enough to be accidental. A fingerprint was also recovered. It was not Becky's. Nathan and Shauna were asked to come back in for more interviews, as things weren't adding up.
Well, the weekend that Becky, after
Becky went missing, I think if I help you, so I think it was on Monday actually that you spoke to police officers, like detectives.
Which would have been outside my mum's house.
That's right.
So I would have went to my mum's that day.
So that was on Monday.
I think I went over on Tuesday.
Where did you stay on Monday night? Do you remember?
It would have been at my house, but we didn't leave until about midnight, to be honest.
So that's about midnight
Yeah,
Monday.
most nights we did. Tuesday we went over again.
Yeah.
Again, probably would have left about midnight.
Yeah.
Wednesday, I think we stayed in my house. We might have gone over again Wednesday, actually, sorry, I think. Thursday, which was yesterday.
That was yesterday?
Yeah, we had the interview, and then obviously we've gone over again today. Yeah, because Wednesday we started watching a film, or two films, that my mum fell asleep and we didn't leave until like 2 o'clock in the morning or something.
On Wednesday?
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
Thursday, yeah.
And then Thursday we obviously had the interview, and then today.
Tests eventually came back from forensics. The fingerprint found in the blood on the frame of Becky's door was Nathan's. And the blood? This was a 100% match to Becky. On February the 28th, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hall were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping Becky. The community was stunned. Could her stepbrother really be involved? Warning signs were there. Nathan and Becky did not get on. Nathan was 10 years older than Becky and had never liked the fact his mother and Becky's father, Darren, were together. He and Darren had a difficult relationship. Although Becky's brother Dan got on with Nathan, Nathan didn't have much time for Becky. Becky at one stage had an eating disorder, which would make her faint and unwell. Nathan accused her of attention seeking and showed her no sympathy. Once, Nathan came to the house with some young girls in his car who were underage. Darren would not let them in and told Nathan to leave. When Nathan was 21, he came round with his new girlfriend, Shauna Hall. He told everyone she was 19, but she was actually 15. Darren figured this out and told him to leave. This added to Nathan's resentment of him. Darren did not want his children taken back into care, so would not allow anything that could jeopardize the hard work he had done in keeping them safe. Darren later said he did not like Shauna either, as there was something odd about her. Nathan and Shauna were questioned again, this time under caution. As the news broke, detectives searched Nathan and Shauna's home, and what they found painted a disturbing picture. The house was extremely untidy and cluttered. Every room was a mess. However, the bathtub stood out. It was spotless. It had obviously been cleaned repeatedly. Detectives wondered why. Nathan and Shauna's home was searched for days, as both Nathan and Shauna remained in custody. It was a painstaking search, due to all the clutter and mess. But then, police had a breakthrough. 2 receipts for the home DIY store B&Q were found, and on them, evidence of a purchase that sent chills down detectives' spines. It showed that on the Friday Becky had gone missing, an electric circular saw, gloves, goggles, and a mask had been bought. CCTV from the store showed it was Nathan who made the purchase. Both Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hall were rearrested for the suspicion of the murder of Becky Watts. It was now a murder investigation. Becky's family were devastated. News spread across the community. Everyone was in shock. More pressure was put on both Nathan and Shauna in their interviews. Police needed to know where Becky's body was. Finally, Nathan cracked. A pre-prepared statement was read out to the police from his lawyer. This is what he said. I, Nathan Charles Matthews, accept I'm responsible for the death of Rebecca Watts. On the 19th of February 2015, I attended Crown Hill, St George, Bristol, with my girlfriend Shauna Hoare. In my care, I had a large bag, a stun device, handcuffs, tape and mask. I had developed an idea to scare Rebecca by kidnapping her. I wanted to scare her and teach her a lesson. I believed that she was selfish and her behaviour towards my mother was a risk to her health. A few minutes after arriving, Shauna said she wanted a cigarette and went into the garden. I went to the boot of my car, took out a bag that contained the items, then went upstairs to the landing before knocking on Rebecca's door. She replied, "What?" or "Hello?" And I said, "Can I see you a minute?" I cannot be sure which order things happened, but I used the items I had to subdue Rebecca. During the short struggle, my mask slipped and Rebecca was able to see my face. This caused me to panic and I strangled her while she was partially in the bag. Police were stunned. After he killed Becky, he dismembered her in the bathtub of his home. This was why it was so spotless. He had cleaned it after he did the heinous act. Nathan now revealed where Becky's body was disposed.
As a result of new information received late last night, we attended at a house at Barton Court in the Barton Hill area of Bristol. The information suggested that Becky's body had been cut up and a search at the new location resulted in the discovery of body parts. Although formal identification procedures have not yet been completed, we have made Becky's family aware of this discovery. As a result of this latest development, a further 3 men and 2 women have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. They remain in police custody at this time, as do the man and woman arrested on suspicion of Becky's murder. This is devastating news for Becky's family and friends, and our thoughts are with them.
Becky's body had been wrapped in plastic bags and placed in suitcases. Cat litter and salt crystals had been used to hide the smell. The suitcases were then put into the shed of the property. Following tests, it evidenced Becky had fought hard in her final moments. She had over 40 injuries to her body and had likely died from asphyxiation and stab wounds. Now police knew Nathan was guilty. What role did Shauna play? Police investigated further and managed to gather the timeline of the horrific events. On Thursday, February the 19th, at 8:30 a.m, Becky returned home after staying out with a friend. At 10:50 a.m, Nathan and Shauna get to Becky's home. They know Angie and Darren would be out. Nathan parks his car on the drive with the boot facing the front door. At 11:03 a.m, Becky sends her last ever text to her boyfriend saying she is listening to music. Moments after this, Nathan attacks Becky. Her body is then put into the boot of his car. At 12:45 p.m, Darren and Angie get back home. Nathan and Shauna are there, acting normal, while Becky's dead body is only a few feet away, outside in the boot of the car. At 5 p.m, Becky's boyfriend gets to the house. Concerned he hasn't heard from her, Shauna answers the door and pretends to look in her room, whilst Becky's boyfriend stays downstairs speaking to Darren and Angie. At 7 p.m, Nathan and Shauna drive home. They take Becky's body inside, and she is dismembered in the bathtub. They then order a takeaway. Friday, February the 20th, at 12:20 p.m, Nathan buys 2 bottles of drain cleaner. He then goes to B&Q and buys the goggles, mask, gloves and circular saw. At 3:10 p.m, Shauna texts him saying, "What time you finish work? Lol." At 4 p.m, Darren calls the police to report Becky missing. At 6:35 p.m, the police arrive at Becky's home and speak with Darren and Angie. Nathan and Shauna are now there. They both say they heard her leave the house the morning before. By 9 p.m, they both return to their house and watch a YouTube video called "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" On February the 21st, they both visit a store and buy bin bags, gloves, rubble sacks, cling film and bleach. The next day, they buy a sponge, tape, more cling film and rubble sacks. Shauna denied involvement, yet texts, recordings and CCTV revealed she was fully complicit, helping cover up the crime. Shauna was eventually charged with the murder of Becky Watts, along with Nathan. Becky's funeral was held on the 17th of April at St Ambrose Church. Hundreds of people paid respects as her coffin was transported with a horse-drawn carriage. On October the 6th, 2015, the trial of Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare began at Bristol Crown Court. The trial was horrific, as the details were laid bare. Shauna claimed she was innocent throughout, but the evidence was damning. Eventually, the jury reached a verdict. Shauna Hoare was found guilty of the kidnap and manslaughter of Becky Watts. Nathan Matthews was found guilty of the kidnap and murder of Becky Watts. Nathan was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 33 years. Shauna received 17 years for manslaughter and perverting the court of justice. Becky Watts was just 16, a daughter, a friend, a young woman with her whole future ahead of her. Her life was taken by the very people who should have been protecting her. Cases like Becky's remind us that evil doesn't always come from strangers in the shadows. Sometimes it comes from those we think we know best. Becky's story is one we must never forget, because behind every headline is a family still living with the pain of what was stolen from them.